bosom was too big. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sad. Oh, DJ, what? I don't know what to do for her. DJ?
Well, I mean, we can't really give her a hug because social distancing and all that. But, maybe we can give her a happy thought through tonight's program.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
So,
Gertie, go downstairs and get ready to do the announcement. Buck up and you'll feel better. Yeah, okay. All right. Whew, all right. She's going to give it the old college try, folks.
Round of applause for our senior showgirl. All right, Gertie, if you're ready, I'll cue your music from here.
Yeah, go ahead.
You reading it?
No, DJ, play the. Oh, all right. I got to do it live. Oh, okay. I thought I sent you the new one. Oh, I was interrupted, wasn't I? Start it over.
Yes, sir. Okay, Gertie, we get a do-over here. It's the honor system. So, sorry you didn't get in Peter Pan. We'll give you a second try here, Gertie.
J.M. Barrie is an author and playwright who's hit a slump. Distracted from his unenchanted marriage, he makes friends with a family of young boys while at the park. Their mother grieves, for her late husband and Mr. Barrie lost his youth. This is making me cry. As the children have their flights of fantasy with their new friend, Mr. Barrie pens an inspired tale of a land where no one grows up and the nearly impossible comes true. Grab your picnic blanket and some play clothes. It's time for Johnny Depp and Kate Winslet in Finding Neverland. Hit it, boys.
What do you get when you take a dash of the silver screen, a pinch of golden oldies, and a smidgen of screaming? It's time for Matinee Minutia with your hosts DJ and Toppie.
Alrighty. So it's going to be Father's Day in a couple of days, Toppie. And it's also going to be the first day of summer. Who'd have thought it would come so soon, huh?
Well, the thing is, it really just seems sudden to me. I can't believe we're halfway through the year. It just seems impossible, and yet here we are.
Partially thanks to this pandemic we're going through here, by the time we hit the holidays, I will have spent half the year sitting in this chair.
Oh, because you're working at home.
Yes, but I kind of consider it a promotion, though. I mean, I finally got that office with a view.
Mm-hmm. Now, DJ, before we get too far, I just want to ask, did you press record for our video?
Yes, sir, I did.
Like the YouTube thing?
Yes, sir.
Okie doke, just checking.
That's all right. And so also, as well as the arrival of summer, we have a very special day that we recognize a period in history. It's known as Juneteenth. Now, Toppie, do you know anything about Juneteenth?
Very little. I know the incredible historic footage so well, but the origins of how this became something to observe and how it got to be called what it's called, I know nothing about, sadly.
Okay, well, Juneteenth is the celebration of the end of slavery, or at least the beginning of the end, and ironically, it took up to 2 years after Abraham Lincoln gave his famous speech after the Civil War ended. A Union general made his way out to Texas to the town of Galveston on June 19th, on 1865 to proclaim the end of slavery, and that is why June 19th is Juneteenth, the end of slavery. But tonight we're here to talk about Father's Day. In fact, we have a very special film that talks about being a father, or at least a father figure. And before I play the trailer, I just wanted to take a moment to reflect and share a couple of thoughts about Father's Day. You know, Toppie, do you have any special moments, any favorite memories of maybe growing up that you shared with your dad?
Oh, just tons. My father was a real get down on the floor and play with you kind of dad. And yeah, DJ, just go ahead. I need a second.
Sure. Okay. Well, it's been a while since Papa Starsage has been in our lives. So thinking back to this, it's more a scattered, a series of memories, not one in particular that stands out most. But I was very fortunate in that I had a stay-at-home father. And some of my memories were taking naps with my dad after lunch while my siblings were still in school and I wasn't old enough yet. We would watch Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. And I remember days when we would pass the time while Mom was at work because she worked the night shift. And Dad and I would go around and we would just do things to pass the time. We would go to like car dealerships and do test drives. We would go to hardware stores because my dad was a building contractor and he wanted to get the next idea for a kitchen remodel or some little side project. And every once in a while, we would go and look at something like an RV or a mobile home, anything that would pass the time. And of course, as I've mentioned before, this very show itself was inspired by my childhood with the Marionette Theater being named after my dearly departed grandmother. I got to plug in one.
Indeed. Possible secret message coming into pirate headquarters.
Hey, and if you would like, sir, I will go ahead and play the trailer for tonight's film.
Let's hear it. Go ahead.
Who do you belong to?
Excuse me, sir. You're standing on my sleeve.
I might point out you're lying under my bench.
Do you mind us playing with your dog?
No, go on.
So sorry, am I bothering you?
Jane Barrie, pleased to meet you.
Jane Barrie, the author.
He was looking for the inspiration he had lost.
Your play this evening.
I think I can do better.
They were longing for the family they once had.
He died, her husband. He left her with 4 boys.
What began as a chance encounter
Perhaps we'll see you here tomorrow then.
will forever change their lives.
James, may I take your hat?
You are not my father.
Peter's a different boy since his father died.
It's just a dog.
Peter.
Just a dog? With a wee bit of imagination, I can see the great bear Porthos.
Striving to be some kind of public eccentric.
Bang, bang, bang.
You should be aware, James, what some people have been saying.
Have you no idea how much your friendship has already cost my daughter? The boys need a father.
What are you suggesting?
Miramax Films presents
It's the best you've written, James.
the story of a man
What's it like, Neverland?
One day I'll take you there.
who awakened the world's imagination
Young boys should never be sent to bed. They always wake up a day older.
and the people
I need to go on pretending with you.
who inspired him.
You have a man who is a fairy, and this girl calls herself Tinker.
That is Neverland. Treehouse.
Johnny Depp, Kate Winslet, Julie Christie, and Dustin Hoffman.
You can visit Neverland anytime you like.
How?
By believing, Peter. Just believe.
Finding Neverland.
If that makes that movie sound very charming, it's because it is a very charming movie.
So one of the things that we like to do here at Matinee Minutia is set the stage. And what we mean by that is we're going to talk about what was going on in the world at the time of this film. Now, Finding Neverland came out in 2004. And so we're going to tell you about the world in 2004.
Oh, and before you do, Tommy, before you do, DJ, Tommy in the chat room, by the way, hey to everybody in the chat room, our pal Tommy, the ever mysterious Cronehaven, and our always present Aunt Tudor. And we thank you for joining us. And Tommy wrote 1903 is when this movie takes place. And also the movie was released, I guess that's what it says, 100 years after the play first debuted. So that's whether by design or that's just coincidence, I don't know.
So as you were saying, we've got a few folks in the chat room, and we are so glad to have you here tonight. Thanks for dropping by, Tommy and Aunt Tudor, and our returning Cronehaven. So here we are with the world in 2004. In 2004, NASA had the Mars rovers Spirit and Opportunity land on the Red Planet. And, at last count, they have far outlived their original design. They've been there for years. The city and county of San Francisco began issuing same-sex marriage licenses in 2004, and it was as an act of civil disobedience because we didn't have marriage equality yet. And in 2004, Senator John Kerry, future Secretary of State, he wins the Democratic nomination for the presidency then. And also a few other things. In 2004, the last Oldsmobile rolled off the assembly line. Toppie, did you ever have an Oldsmobile?
Nope.
Massachusetts legalized same-sex marriage right behind San Francisco. President Ronald Reagan, the president when I was a little boy, he died at the age of 93, so he had some longevity there. Construction also began on the Independence Tower, and this was at the site of the former World Trade Center. Also, New Jersey Governor James McCreevy, he publicly announced that he was gay and he was resigning from office that November.
Different days, kids.
It was. And the Chinese computer manufacturer Lenovo, well, they bought the rights to IBM's global manufacturing businesses. So, those fancy laptops you used to have for business called the ThinkPad? Well, those are made by the Chinese company Lenovo these days.
Well, normally we also like to say who was born in 2004, who might be stars or celebrities of some sort, but they may not have quite come along yet. So instead, we'll just talk about some of the celebrities that died that year. And boy, big names died that year. Oh my goodness. Ann Miller. She was a dancer and actress. She passed away. By the way, Ann Miller, I just got to say, in the 70s, we had a channel out of New York City. And at the time, somewhere, I don't know, 74, Ann Miller was doing a show with, the guy that done all the movies with Judy Garland. He was a kid then. Andy Rooney. WPIX. That's right, Tommy. I'm sorry. What did I say? Anyways, and it was called, I don't remember what it was called, but what I do remember is Ann Miller was all over the place for about 3 or 4 years because of this musical. And she was, she was not a young person at that time, but her legs were still beautiful and she still did a lot of dancing. Anybody in the chat room, if you remember what the devil they were in, put it in there. And so Jack Parr, he was the first Tonight Show host, and he didn't do it for very long. Cicely Adams and Moogie was their character in Deep Space Nine. Did I pronounce it right, DJ?
Yes, she was Quark's mommy.
Paul Winfield. Oh, I love Paul Winfield. He sadly passed away. Now, this surprises me because I would have said Tony Randall must have died years earlier. Tony Randall died in 2004. That really, I would have sworn he passed away years before that. Ray Charles, super famous, talented, blind singer and musician. Marlon Brando. Well, yeah, that was a very sad end. Jerry Goldsmith, the composer. Rick James, the singer. Julia Child. Oh, save the liver. She died that year. Rodney Dangerfield, the comedian.
No respect.
Right. And Reeves died that year after being years paralyzed and just valiantly just became a spokesman for the handicapped. And finally, Janet Leigh, and most famous for being in Psycho. So, DJ, let's talk about what was in the theaters. We had 2004, Neverland. Finding Neverland was coming out. What was it competing against?
Alrighty. So, in 2004, Finding Neverland, well, of course, it's no secret. We love the underdog here at Matinee Minutia. And, Toppie, you want to take a guess where this laid on the line of box office return?
Well, I'll tell you, boy, do we not pick up DJ or do we not oh, Lordy.
Well, I'll tell you that some of the ones that beat out Finding Neverland are a couple of films that I'm still curious about. But Finding Neverland, it came in at 106 at the box office. Womp womp.
Wow.
22 million that year. And it was released in November, so it was a feel-good movie. It was for the holidays. Now, number one in the theaters that year, and it's no surprise that the lead actor in Finding Neverland is a fan of this film. Shrek 2, with the voice of I'm forgetting his name now. Mike Myers,
yes,
was out that year, and that brought in 441 million. Now, the second film is a comic book character that my nerd brother here adores.
Yeah, but I didn't adore this movie so much.
Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire. It was 373 million. And then, of course, number 3, it was the brainchild of, this is my show, so I'm just going to say it. The tinfoil hat wearing Mr. Mel Gibson. The Passion of the Christ made number 3 at 370. Now, if The Passion of the Christ can do better than Finding Neverland, there is something seriously wrong in this world. Number 4 was Harry Potter, The Prisoner of Azkaban at 249 million. Now, getting back to Finding Neverland, the shows that beat out Finding Neverland that were just neck and neck, we had Ella Enchanted. This was an animated film, and it had the voices of Anne Hathaway. And if you're a fan of Absolutely Fabulous or Sapphire and Steel, that sci-fi series from the 70s, Joanna Lumley was the voice in Ella Enchanted. And that brought in 22.9, a little bit better than Finding Neverland. Agent Cody Banks, number 2. So there was a sequel.
Was that a Matthew Broderick's movie?
No, you would think so, but it starred the lead actor from this kids show called Malcolm in the Middle. Now, I say kids show, but he was a teenager, and it was the adventures of a kid in high school. Frankie Muniz, Malcolm in the Middle, brought in 23.6 million. And then lastly, just a hair above Finding Neverland, Around the World in 80 Days with Jackie Chan, and that brought in $24 million.
Oh, it's still more than our movie. Oh, well. Folks, let's get right into the cast. Although before we do, DJ, would another clip from the movie be appropriate here? It might be kind of fun.
Sure. Would we like to go to the Wild West, or do we want to climb on a ship?
Let's go to the ship.
Okay, so folks, this is a clip from Finding Neverland. Once Mr. J.M. Barrie has met the charming and enchanting children of the Davies family, he starts having adventures with them, and this is one of them.
Rather cleverly shows the way they're make-believing and then shows the way they're seeing it in their minds, which is actually on the pirate ship and really on the plank. And so you really feel like I think it visually constructs this idea really well that they're play acting, and in their minds it's all very real. Let's get right into the stirs. We got Johnny.
Featured quite prominently in that clip was the voice of the lead role in this film, Toppie. And who is that again?
Johnny Depp. Some people love him, some people don't. And it sometimes is really just about the movies in, but he sure has been prolific. He was raised in Florida. He left school at 15. His first role. What does everybody in the chat room think his first role in? What was the first movie Johnny Depp was in?
Whoops, sorry.
Wow. But he really first gained fame in '87 when he landed a role on TV. I think it was Fox did 21 Jump Street, and Tommy hit it right on the nose. Nightmare on Elm Street was his film debut, and then he's also famous for Edward Scissorhands. That was around 1990, and then he would go on to do like 6 movies over the next 5 years, and he's still doing a lot. Now, I want to say, DJ, that before Edward Scissorhands, Depp was in, what was the movie? What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Wasn't that before Edward Scissorhands?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember. There was an actor who played the brother in that film who was a young man.
Yeah, he was in Titanic. What's his face?
Oh, Leo DiCaprio?
Yeah. Anyways, by the way, that was really quite a sensitive, wonderful movie. Aunt Tudor says, Johnny Depp. Aunt Tudor loved him everywhere except Dark Shadows. He's been in a couple of interesting remakes. And like I say, some people like him, some people don't. So in this movie, DJ, who's playing the co-star?
Okay, so Johnny Depp is playing J.M. Barrie, the lead, and he was a Scottish author, and he was the man who brought us the story of Peter Pan. Now, his co-star in this film in Finding Neverland, playing the widow of Sylvia, and this is played by Kate Winslet. Now, you'll recognize her because she was opposite Leo DiCaprio in James Cameron's Titanic in the 90s. Now, Kate Winslet was born into a family of theater actors, so she did a lot of work before getting on the screen, and she scored her first professional gig at 11. She was dancing opposite a character called the Honey Monster. It was in a commercial for kids cereal in England.
Oh, in England, okay.
Yeah, and she started acting lessons around that same time, which led to formal training at a performing arts high school. Now, Kate's film debut was in Peter Jackson's Heavenly Creatures. This was in 94. And she would appear in 9 films over the next 5 years, which included Titanic. And also, more recently, in 2019, she was in a film called Blackbird, which starred Susan Sarandon, maybe another tinfoil hat person. And in 2017, starred in Wonder Wheel. Now, this is a film with Justin Timberlake, and it was a film about an affair that went on between some employees at Coney Island.
Interesting. Let's talk about Dustin Hoffman. We kind of talked a lot about him when we did Tootsie, but we know him as the seasoned actor who's been around for decades now. And of course, he came to light in the 60s with just one hit role after another, starting with The Graduate. And, we've got just so many movies that he's known for. Kramer versus Kramer with Meryl Streep. But more recently, he did some TV work for, I think, Netflix. And he played in some sort of mob series. It had to do with horse owning, or anyways, don't know much about it, but I think that's like the first thing he ever did for TV. But we don't really call Netflix TV, do we? It's a thing unto itself. At any rate, he also did some voice work recently at Kung Fu Panda with Jack Black. And we also remember him in Meet the Fockers with Ben Stiller and Barbra Streisand. And that was actually the same year that he did Finding Neverland. And interestingly, we know he played Captain Hook in 1991's movie Hook. That was a Steven Spielberg movie, which people either loved or hated. That was another one.
I don't know why this is doing that. Hang on. Sorry.
Boy, you got a lot of people trying to break into your room there.
Well, it's the box office at the theater. We keep cash on hand.
That's what it is. So isn't it interesting? And I wonder, did the producers pick him thinking, how clever of us? He was in Hook. Or did perhaps Dustin Hoffman know about the project and said, "Oh, please get me in"? I don't know. DJ, let's talk about the director.
Okay, actually, just before we do that, sir, we're about halfway through our show. we're going to step on out here to the snack bar where our senior showgirl will be serving up some treats. Gertie, are you still there, ma'am?
Yeah, but I'm still sad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll get over it. I'm eating candy.
Well, stuff your pie hole and we'll get over it together. Okay. So if you folks will hang tight for about 3 minutes or so, we're going to play a little feature here. It was an interview with a few members of the cast of Finding Neverland.
Your play this evening.
I think I can do better.
Well, that was a disaster.
What I felt when I read the screenplay, I thought, I just thought it was a really nice story and a rare thing. It's not a film that you see all the time. It's really, truly a work of pure genius. I mean, it's absolutely a masterpiece. An incredible work of imagination.
It's just a dog.
Peter.
Just a dog? The wee bits of imagination.
In Peter Pan, there's a place called Neverland. And if you ask people what the metaphor is, you will get different answers. One person may say that it is a journey to imagination, to creativity. Others might say it means you never die. Neverland is the place that exists for all of us.
What's it like, Neverland?
One day I'll take you there.
I think Barry's the child who never grew up because he was always taking us off and playing pirates.
Who amongst you is ready to tie your hopes and dreams to the sea?
I am!
Not finished yet.
To enter upon the most dangerous chapter in your young and soon-to-be wasted lives.
What did you say? What are you doing, son?
So I think it's Barry I think it's Barry who's Peter Pan.
It's true, he has no shadow.
But I'm not Peter Pan. He is.
She's fascinated by him in the same way as the boys are fascinated by him. And that's, I think, the kind of wonderful undercurrent of this story is that they're so magnetically drawn to this man. And not because he does anything, not because he entices them in, just by being who he is, and sort of welcoming them into his kind of fantastical world in the way that he does.
Excuse me, you're standing on my sleeve.
I might point out you're lying under my bench.
I'm so sorry, are my boys bothering you?
Jay and Barrie, pleased to meet you.
I think Johnny Depp is just a fantastic actor, and I think he ultimately represents the man who never wants to grow up, because he ultimately has this child within him, which is still alive, and you can see it in his choices of movies he makes.
James, we're just having some tea. You remember my mother, of course?
Yes, of course. How do you do?
May I take your hat?
And what I think that kids or the viewer should take away is the importance of freedom. Your imagination. How important it is to allow your imagination to be free to invent things, however ridiculous. To not be afraid to take risks.
I need to go on pretending with you.
You can visit Neverland anytime you like.
How?
Just believe.
Alrighty. We have returned. One of the people that you heard in that clip was the director, Mr. Marc Forster. Mr. Forster was German-born. He was born in Bavaria, which is a region of Germany. Finding Neverland was his fourth film. And prior to this, he did a film called Monsters Ball in 2001 that starred Billy Bob Thornton. And I'm trying to remember, he's the ex of the lady that's doing Maleficent these days. Anyways, also Halle Berry in that Monsters Ball. Now, Forster would direct 5 films over the next 5 years, including Stranger Than Fiction in 2006. And this starred Emma Thompson as an author, whose work was coming to life on the screen, and Will Ferrell. And one of his most notable films, Marc Forster directed Quantum of Solace. This was a 2008 film. It was one of the James Bond 007 films with Mr. Daniel Craig, Old Blondie. And in 2013, most recently, Mr. Forster directed heartthrob Brad Pitt in a sort of a post-apocalypse zombie film called World War Z.
Mm-hmm. That is a really interesting mix of movies. TJ, what did you think about the score, the music in this Finding Neverland?
It reminded me of some of the older film scores. It had a full orchestra, and there was a wide range of emotion that was portrayed with that music. And it's no surprise that he won an Oscar for the best original score for this.
That's right. It's really nice soundtrack, and the composer is Jan A.P. Kaczmarek, and he's Polish-born. Over 64 credits of film scores, and like DJ said, won the Oscar for this one. Well, we said it was a charming movie, and it was. Tommy told me earlier today that he thought it was somber and a little depressing, and I couldn't disagree, because it has that side to it. It deals with some serious things, well, the death of a mother who has 4 children, and it's very sad.
And I picked this movie as our Father's Day special because it does explore those themes of fatherhood. Now, it goes without saying that Mr. J.M. Barrie, of course, passed on a long time ago now, and he was a figure in history. And, as we are earning our rights and getting equality, there are certain truths that come to light. Now, several sources that I read suggested that Mr. Barrie may have been a gay man. And one of the things that was discussed was that although he was married, of course, which was portrayed in this film, his wife Mary, that he was still with up until he became acquainted with the Davies family, Sylvia and her boys. In real life, it's entirely possible that marriage was never consummated. So historically speaking, when we look back at that period in time, it wasn't an uncommon thing that people who may have been closeted, may have been in fear of their lifestyle becoming public knowledge, would follow in the footsteps of normalcy. You would take a spouse, you would get married, and of course nowadays we have less flattering terms for things like that. She might have been called his beard, but Finding Neverland I find to be a thoroughly charming film because it does explore those themes of fatherhood. And even though J.M. Barrie never got to marry Sylvia, he was made the guardian of the children. Now, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. And with your permission, Toppie, we'll continue the discussion. But I thought I would go ahead and play yet another clip of the fun and frivolity that J.M. Barrie had with the Davies boys.
Okay, let's just welcome Maren Gertz into the chat room. She came in just a little while ago.
Welcome, Maren. Alrighty, and here is some playtime with Mr. Barrie and the Davies boys.
Return the boy to us, you nasty Injun.
Our people teach boy Indian ways, make him great warrior. Our chief, Running Nose, never let him go.
Bang, bang, bang!
Me wounded, Peter. Time short. You go. Spread wings and soar like eagle above enemy. Fly back to our chief. Tell her of my brave defeat.
That's crazy. Indians can't fly.
Of course they can't. Go on, go on, go on.
Listen to us, boy. This Indian kidnapped you.
Not true. We kidnapped no one. You lost the boy. I teach you ways of the brave. I take you as my own son.
You are not my father.
Bang, 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 bang.
I've got him.
Let me go. Stop it, you two.
Oh, we are awful, aren't we? I'm warning you. Oh, I'm scared. We're going to have a bit of fun for a change.
Stop it, you two.
Don't.
Get off, Jack. Stop it. Get off. Get off, George. Peter.
I'm terribly sorry.
Oh, it wasn't your fault.
I'm afraid it might have been.
To be honest, I'm just happy you got him to join in the game.
Oh, yes, I was a tremendous success.
Mr. Barrie, it's more than I've been able to achieve. Peter's a different boy since his father died. I don't think he's even had a good cry about it.
Well, grief affects us all in different ways, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Oh, by the way, my wife would like to invite you and the boys over to dinner. Your mother as well.
How kind. That would be lovely.
Oh, you're going to regret that. the dinner is extremely awkward. DJ, wouldn't you say the kids, the actors doing the kid roles, not one is a misfire. They're all super naturalistic. You don't even believe that they're acting. It's that good. How they rounded up these kids so well and got such performances, and they're in a lot of scenes. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, and the actor who played the not the youngest boy, but the favorite sort of Mr. Barrie, who he named the character in Peter Pan after Peter, who spoke up in that clip there that he liked his own name. Freddie Highmore played Peter in this film. Now, you may recognize Freddie Highmore from some more recent things he's done. In fact, he was on A&E's Bates Motel series that was on for a while there.
No, was that him?
It was, all grown up about 10, 15 years after this.
With the scruff and the...
Yes.
Oh, my Lord, I fell in love with him in that film.
Now, directly after Finding Neverland in 2005, Johnny Depp enjoyed the performance of his co-star, Freddie Highmore, so much that he recommended him for his next project, which was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So young Freddie Highmore got to play Charlie Bucket.
Oh,
in the Tim Burton film.
Yeah. Huh.
So, there were some liberties that they took with this story because, of course, this was a family film, and they didn't want to confuse the issue for any children that might have been watching this. But historically speaking, J.M. Barrie actually was one to hang out in the park there. I think it may have been Kensington Gardens, and he actually had been a regular in the park for a few years before he formalized his friendships with the Davies. And it actually was suggested in this film that Sylvia was a widow by the time J.M. Barrie started hanging out with her children. But in reality, her husband, Arthur Davies, was still very much in the picture. Now, he was in poor health, and he actually did die of cancer, but that wasn't until after Peter Pan was first put on as a play. So they were sneaking around. But, it goes to show you, though, even though J.M. Barrie wasn't in a formal relationship with Sylvia, some of the undertones of this story were that he was grieving his lost youth. And do you remember what happened that sort of shaped his outlook on life, Toppie, to him when he was a young man?
Didn't his father die early? What happened to his father?
His brother.
His brother.
Do you remember that story?
No. Tell him about it.
Okay. It's relayed in part of the clip that I just played for you, where he invites Sylvia to dinner at his house. But J.M. Barrie in real life was one of, I believe, I may be confusing, but one of several children in his family. I think he may have been as many as 10 children. And at the tender age of 6, J.M. Barrie lost his older brother, who was 13, just about to turn 14, through a tragic accident while ice skating.
Okay.
So as a result of that, J.M. Barrie was very much a child at heart in his later years because he had a lost youth. That tragic moment of losing his brother forever kept him in that state. And, it's certainly something to reflect upon, but he did his best to make good in life by trying to be a good role model for the Davies boys. And, even though we're in this period of social distancing and we can't quite do things that we normally do, I would recommend, or I would suggest any of you who maybe don't want to be a parent per se, but want to mentor, look into your local Big Brothers and Sisters chapter, because I'm sure that there are some young people who could do with some positive role models, and you can make a difference if even you're not willing to, adopt a child or do anything to that extreme where you bring someone in your home. Figure out a way that you could spend some time, just an afternoon or something. I mean, it's people like J.M. Barrie that makes you think about the want to give back.
Interesting, DJ, because I got to tell you, I had all but forgotten about the big, what do they call it? The Big Brothers organization, Big Brothers and Big Sisters. You never hear it mentioned anymore. At least I haven't.
Yeah, I think that some of the volunteer organizations kind of have blended into the background now that we have more equality. We don't have just the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts now. You don't have to be a certain gender to be in a scout organization. So I think in that same way, Big Brothers and Sisters is probably still very much out there. It's just, how often do you hear about people volunteering these days?
Yeah, I don't know. DJ, I'm just going to say the scenes that I really loved in this movie are there's like many, they're brief, but scenes about behind the scenes in theater, like what happens behind the curtain, how things are written and produced, and how they were done at that time. And I found all of that really interesting. I loved the scenes where they're play acting and imagination, and imaginating. They're imaginauts, and they're all just done so well. And the two that you've told me that you love are also probably my favorites. You want to tell them about it?
Oh, yes. So these are the moments you shouldn't miss. If you haven't caught Finding Neverland and you're about to watch it for the first time, keep your eyes peeled for these moments because they are truly what make it worth watching. So it's a good part of the way through the film for my favorite moments. It's probably in the last half hour or so. But little Peter, he is sort of lost. In fact, it was probably part of the inspiration for the Peter Pan Lost Boys. The boys had lost their father, and so Mr. Barrie was being the role model. Little Peter had received a journal, a gift from Mr. Barrie. Of course, it was just a bound book of pages to write in, but that's how it was in those days. You didn't have a notepad. And Sylvia, the mother, was laying in her sick bed at home in her bedroom on the night of the big play. And little Peter wasn't sure if he should leave the house with his mother. And she reaches into her nightstand and pulls out of the drawer the journal that he had tore up in frustration at the beginning of the film when his mother took to one of her sick fits where she would grab her chest and she would be coughing. And the other moment that I feel is a moment you shouldn't miss is, of course, Sylvia ends up missing Mr. Barrie's play, the
debut, yeah.
Yeah, in 1903 when Peter Pan is first performed, and of course it's not called Peter Pan just yet, but J.M. Barrie comes to Sylvia's house and he has the play performed a couple of days later, and it's just such an enchanting moment because here she's sitting in her own living room and she's not sure what's going on, and then suddenly the play is being performed for her, and there are all these undertones, including a scene where Tinkerbell drinks Peter Pan's medicine that has been poisoned so that she saves him from dying. And in that moment, you see it in her face. It's almost as if J.M. Barrie has brought out an engagement ring and is asking for her hand.
And I think it has a famous closing scene that's not a little, but quite unforgettable. The last scene in the park. And then they fade away and there's nothing but the park bench. So I guess we could both say we really love this movie.
Oh, yes. Surprisingly so. When I saw it, I wasn't sure that I was going to enjoy it. And the fact that it's based upon a true story makes that even more enjoyable because now you can go out and read about J.M. Barrie and about that period in time.
Mm-hmm.
We have some recommendations that follow suit on that. But before we go ahead and give our related recommendations, our snack tray, going to play just the last clip here. This is when the play is being performed for the first time. And the theater manager, played by Dustin Hoffman, is worried that the house is not sold out yet. There's 25 seats left.
Last call, please, ladies and gentlemen. Last call for the final.
Yes. Sorry. We had time to sell those 25 seats. Please stop.
Charles.
What?
They're here.
Who's here?
We forgive them being a bit late. Short legs, long walk from the orphanage.
I'm not clear what they're doing here.
You've come to see the play? Mm-hmm. That's the 25 seats.
Mm-hmm. 25 seats given to orphans. Right. Now my nightmare is complete.
You can start your play now.
Your play.
So the man who had no children of his own, he reserved 25 seats for orphans. And it should be noted that the story of Peter Pan was actually written into Mr. Barrie's will, that all the royalties would go towards the Great Ormond Children's Hospital. And they continued to benefit from that for many years to come.
But let's explain why the orphans were brought in. Number one is they were terribly afraid adults would just not get this play, and they thought, typically kids would not be in the theater at this day and age, and they had the front rows filled with orphan children who, of course, saw and understood everything and responded perfectly by applauding and loving it. And it sort of invited the adults to warm up to it, and it worked.
Yes, it was a very innovative technique for the time. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised, because Toppie and I were discussing this as we watched it together. Yes, we watched it virtually together. Something we hope to share with the rest of you now and then. Stay tuned for details. And anyways, it was very touching, and I wouldn't be surprised if the story of Peter Pan in terms of play productions might have been one of the very first, or at least earliest, instances of audience participation, because as some of you may not be aware, whenever you have a fairy who's about to die, you can bring them back to life through hope. You can tell them that you believe in fairies by clapping, of course.
Mm-hmm. DJ, I'm going to leave you to wrap this up. I've got some things I've got to take care of. I'm going to leave you to say the goodbyes and conclude and everything. And audience, I have to leave a little early and suddenly. And I'm glad you're all here. Love the movie. Thanks, DJ, for putting this all together. And I will, I will say good night to everyone now and let DJ send you home.
Don't forget to tip your chauffeur.
Yes.
Alrighty, folks. So we have reached the point in the show where we're going to tell you, or at least I'm going to tell you, about things that are related to Finding Neverland that you might also enjoy. This is our snack tray. So other good films, and because Father's Day is coming up around the corner here, other good father-themed films that I would recommend would include a film that we discussed just this last year, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which had Mr. Dick Van Dyke in the 60s there. Also with Mr. Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins. Because, as you might not know, if you watch the continuation of the story of Mary Poppins saving Mr. Banks, the author is played by Emma Thompson, would like you to know that Mary Poppins wasn't there for the children. And, of course, I would also recommend a film with Jodie Foster, Contact, because her character lost her dad at a young age, and much of the film was looking back on his influence. So wrapping this up, also June 19th, as we mentioned earlier in the program, is Juneteenth, the celebration at the beginning of the end of slavery. A film that I would like to recommend with a similar theme is a film that came out in 2006, which starred Albert Finney, which you might remember from Annie. And there's a movie called Erin Brockovich with Julia Roberts. Also, Mr. Michael Gambon and up-and-coming English actor Benedict Cumberbatch, who was in the Sherlock Holmes series that was done. Well, this 2006 film called Amazing Grace, and it explored the passing of legislation in the United Kingdom to end slavery. And they did it 20 years before we did here in America. So how about that, folks? All right, folks, I've been passed a note here that Toppie left behind. His related recommendations. If you enjoyed Finding Neverland, you'd certainly enjoy the recent Winnie the Pooh movie. And that has Ewan McGregor in the lead role there. It's Christopher Robin. It's many years later since the little boy grew up, and now he has a daughter that gets to learn all about the 100-acre wood. And also, Toppie would recommend the film with Paul Winfield and Cicely Tyson called Sounder. Okay, folks, I want to thank you for coming tonight. Thank you, Aunt Tudor, Cronehaven, Maureen, and Tommy. And before we conclude, we're going to let you know what is coming down the pike. So we're going to go ahead and grab that bag of coins the magician left behind. And we're going to drop that coin slot. Okay, let me see what we've got here. Oh, we have a 70s long-running sitcom because we try to keep things light here on our non-themed episode. It's a 1972 classic TV sitcom that started many people's careers and actually was reinvented at one point. The Bob Newhart Show. The next episode of Matinee Minutia, which is going to be on Friday, July 3rd. And remember, folks, we do take the summer off, so there are only 3 shows left. And stay tuned for a special farewell to the summer with a possible dedication. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. And I will do the adieus here. Good night, Gracie. Thank you for listening to Matinee Minutia. Our show streams live on the first and third Friday of the month.
Go to univozpods.net, click the tower for audio, enter Discord for chat.
You can find our show anywhere you listen to podcasts. Visit our webpage at matineeminutia.com.
Tweet us on Twitter at Matinee Minutia. Find our group on Facebook.
Have an idea for a show? Or let us know how we're doing.
Email us at matineeminutia@gmail.com.
Joe's Gone Wild with Matt and Tom.
Speak up.
The Smellcast by Toppie Smellie.
Be heard.
Tastes like burning with Tim and James.
Unique voices in podcasting.
The Shy Life Podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti.
UniVozpods.net. And that concludes our broadcast. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your evening. Have a good weekend. And remember, folks, stay safe. Practice social distancing. And for hydrogen's sake, wear a mask while out in public. Your loved ones depend on you.